the healer meta going to change for patch 9.1.5? No, I just saved you a bunch of time. But if you're interested in seeing the healer changes, if you're interested in seeing the popular Covenant choices, my prediction ranking for Mythic Plus healers, and my overall thoughts of healers in raiding situation, let's get this video started. But a small disclaimer before we're gonna start: there is a possibility of some hotfixes happening before the patch is released or shortly afterwards, so keep your eye out on the comment section. I'll try and keep people updated with some of the new things happening. And we're going to start off with Mistweaver monks because they received some unexpected changes in my opinion, and besides some of the AoE cap softening for spinning crane kick, the main changes, if you look at it, is going to be Ventier Mistweaver monk, and that includes Fallen Order. A lot of people might not be aware about the changes that are happening to them because they're relatively confused about how the ability works. Fallen Order is going to spawn 8 Fallen Monks, 4 of which are going to be Crane Adepts, which are going to be casting Enveloping Mist and Soothing Mist on targets. And now Blizzard has reduced no longer gains cooldown reduction for the Monk's Haste, which is actually a HPS nerf. But shortly after, Blizzard increased the Crane Adepts from Fallen Order, now cast Enveloping Mist twice when summoned, which is a sizable HPS buff, especially if you don't have a lot of overhealing. So all of a sudden, Fallen Order is going to have a gain in HPS. It is a buff to the HPS and a buff to DPS, because out of the 4 cranes that you spawn, 4 other adepts are going to be either Ox or Tiger, and Tiger adepts, Tiger Palm damage is increased, and Tiger adepts now cast Spinning Crane Kick if there are more than 1 enemies within range. So now there's going to be a slight DPS buff. Again, I'm not 100% sure about the exact DPS gains because testing this, and believe me, the Monk Discord has done an incredible job. Testing Fallen Order is such a pain, but as we look on paper, Ventier Mistweaver monks are getting a HPS buff and a DPS buff. Is it going to be rivaling the DPS of Kirin Resto Shaman or Ventier Holy Paladin? No. But it is still a buff. And then you saw Wave the Fate, which is a Knife Fate Conduit effect is increased by 100%, which is again trying to keep other covenants in line. But at the same time, it doesn't really make sense because by buffing Ventier, I feel more and more Mistweaver monks are going to be pushed into that Ventier covenant spot because it is the best HPS and it's getting buffed. Now let's go to Restoration Druids, and honestly there's not a lot of things to talk about here, and I know the list is long, but honestly the only things that really gonna affect Restoration is that Swipe. Again, the AoE soft cap has been somewhat removed, and it's nice, but it's not groundbreaking, and Adaptive Swarm has been receiving a lot of quality of life changes out of Swarm. Jump range has been increased to 50 yards and will now jump to a friendly target if it expires on a friendly target and there are no valid hostile targets within 50 yards, which basically means that you can reduce the amount of times your Adaptive Swarm is going to drop off, especially in Mythic Plus environment where you're going from trash pack to trash pack, which is nice. But honestly, there's not a whole lot of things to be really happy about if you're Restoration Druid and looking for some substantial changes in order to make you more optimal in Raid or Mythic Plus environment. And now let's go to Holy Paladin, and a lot of the changes here are buffing underperforming Covenants, specifically Necrolord and Night Fate. Vanquisher's Hammer Necrolord ability now increases the effectiveness of a free Holy Power spender. If you use Vanquisher's Hammer, your next Wall of Glory is going to trigger a free Light of Dawn, which is going to be more powerful. And Righteous Might, which is the conduit damage effect, is increased by 400% just to showcase how undervalued it was. And healing effect reduced by 50%. It makes sense because Vanquisher's Hammer deals increased damage and heals you for the damage done, so maybe they didn't want this to be too overpowered. And they also buffed Night Fate Covenant ability. Do I think this is going to be enough to bring them in line with your really popular Ventier Holy Paladin or even Kyrian Holy Paladin, which again is not as popular, but it can be really potent when combined with different soul binds that Kyrian provides, like in Mythic Plus Mechanicals? I don't think the buffs here are going to be enough to bring them in line, but I know where Blizzard is going with this, and maybe there's going to be further hotfixes or buffs. Who knows? Maybe there's going to be a new legendary combo emerging, so keep your ear to the ground on this. I like where Blizzard is going with this in terms of trying to bring other covenants in line, but I'm just not sure if it's enough at this given point. I'm going to be trying out Necro just to see what it feels like. And now let's go to Priest. And honestly, Priest received probably the most altering changes that are going to change your talent build in Mythic Plus and Raids, or possibly change how you approach your Priest in different scenarios. So Festering Transfusion, Necro Conduit damage, and healing effect is increased by 100%. This is something, again, trying to keep other covenants in line. I don't think this Discipline is ever going to step away from Kyrian, because Kyrian, Boon of the Senate, is just far too strong, both in Mythic Plus and in Raids. In Mythic Plus, you can get Boon of the Senate to 1 minute with Kyrian and Kyrian specific legendary, which just simplifies and makes your Discipline a lot more secure. But Holy, I think, is a lot more free in trying out different covenants, so it might be interesting to try it out, but I think a lot of the Holy Priests right now are going to go with Nightfade to be that support healer both in Mythic Plus and Raid situations. Now this is where interesting stuff happens. Divine Star talent and Halo talent now deals reduced healing beyond 6 targets, so this makes Divine Star and Halo a lot more potent. Even though healing has been reduced by 20%, Halo is still going to be buffed if you get enough targets hit. So with the Divine Star and Halo changes, with that fact that Discipline Divine Star damage is increased by 40%, Holy Divine Star damage is increased by 40%, you will probably see Divine Star being used by Discipline Priest and possibly Holy Priest. Again, if you're running Holy Priest in Mythic Plus, you're probably using Divine Star anyways, so this is going to be a flat out damage buff to your Holy Priest DPS. We'll have to see how it's going to go in raids, but Discipline is actually looking to default to Divine Star because of the damage increases and the fact that the AoE cap softening is going to happen. You'll be able to hit, especially in Sanctum of Domination. A lot of people are stacked, and maybe if you can't hit it, Halo might be another good option. So all of a sudden, there's going to be a lot of alterations in your default talent pick, both for Discipline and Holy in Mythic Plus and Raid situations. It'll be very, very, very interesting. Now, Contrition talent healing has also been increased, but this is not looking to be too significant because Contrition requires an effective defensive penance, and especially in Raid situations where there's a lot of single target snipe healers available, it's probably going to be hard to get a good value out of it, so it's still looking at very much a niche choice. We'll have to see. Another interesting change, Shadow Covenant has been buffed. Healing increased by 10%, mana cost reduced by 10%, and duration lowered to 7 seconds. Now, Shadow Covenant is an extremely interesting ability in my opinion because it locks you out of casting holy spells, so it can actually be detrimental to you if you don't use it at the right times. It is still very mana costly, and Discipline requires a lot of mana. It requires innovates in raids, and Mythic Plus you're going to be picking the blue mana ball anima powers. So it is a relatively heavy or mana intensive ability, but I think there could be some builds emerging that would be interesting. I'm not saying this is going to emerge as the default pick. I'm not saying this is going to be the biz. I'm saying it might be interesting to try it out and see how it works, especially if you can weave in those shadow spells and you know how to play Shadow Covenant properly. And now we're gonna go to Restoration Shaman. Honestly, the list is just so long. There's not a lot of things happening to Resto Shaman, and rightly so. It is one of the best Mythic Plus healers right now, especially if you're carrying Resto Shaman, and a really solid raid healer, to some extent known as the Utility King. The only real changes happening is going to be Elysian Dirge, which is a Kyrian conduit effect is increased by 50%. Elysian Dirge is one of the most popular Kyrian Resto Shaman potency conjures to be used when you want to increase your single target damage, because the main reason you go Kyrian Resto Shaman is for Mythic Plus with Mechanicos, and you're going to be doing a lot of damage on a 40-second cooldown if you can use your Vesper Totem properly. This is, again, more damage to one of the best DPS healer specs in the game. I like it. So now let's go to some of the most popular covenants. This is real play information in 9.1. Again, 9.1.5 is going to allow you to freely swap covenants, which means there's going to be a lot more freedom for players who are doing Mythic Plus or for players who are doing raiding. So you can see here the data right now is going to change, but generally speaking, Discipline Priest Kyrian is the king, is the way to go, especially in Mythic Plus situations where you're getting Boon of the Senate on 1 minute because you're using Kyrian plus Mechanicos plus the Kyrian specific legendary. It creates a lot more safety net for a healer that can be pretty troublesome in weeks with Grievous and things like that. So Kyrian is probably going to still stay the same for Discipline Priest. Holy Paladin Ventir is still very, very popular. I know Blizzard is pushing Necrolord. I don't think it's going to be enough, but we'll have to see in the future. Maybe there's going to be some kind of legendary combos emerging. Now, Holy Priest is probably one of the most free Covenant choices you can get, because Holy Priest can pretty much go any Covenant and it'll be fine in raids and Mythic Plus. The reason you see Kyrian being top because a lot of the Holy Priests are going to play Discipline, and Discipline requires Kyrian to really, really perform well. You'll see a lot of Nightfade as well being a very, very solid option, because Nightfade kind of facilitates the support healer role that Holy Priest is kind of trying to fit in right now. So as a Holy Priest, I will probably see a lot more changes in terms of the main or popular Covenant choices for Mythic Plus and Raid. Watch this space for the time being. Now, Mistweaver Monk, I feel, is going to go in the way of Ventir. In 9.15, like I mentioned, you saw the start of the video, Ventir is getting buffed in terms of HPS, in terms of DPS. I just feel Blizzard is making a mistake to some extent, because I feel they want you to have more Covenant choices when it comes to Mythic Plus and Raids, but at the same time, they're buffing the overperforming Ventier, and all of a sudden you'll probably see Ventier both in Mythic Plus and Raids. I personally am going to try out Night Fae in Mythic Plus because I like Feline Stomp, the DPS that it provides. We'll test out the Conduit buffs and things like that, but I do feel Ventier is going to be pushed and pushed to every Mistweaver monk who wants to do good HPS and decent amount of DPS as well. Now let's go to Restoration Druid, and you'll see that a lot of the times if Resto Druid wants to perform in raid environment, they'll have to go Night Fae. Night Fae with the Convoke specific legendary, the HPS is pretty much unmatched. You're going to be Night Fae in raids, and because you can't swap out freely, you're probably going to be Night Fae in Mythic Plus. Even though there is some other choices like Kyrian, which honestly is a very interesting covenant that is appearing right now in really high-end Mythic play, because it is with Kindred Spirits, you will provide additional damage, and with Kyrian specific legendary Kindred Affinity, you will also have some hidden stat boost that is going to help out your DPS, which in this time of age in World of Warcraft, a healer supporting DPS is one of the best ways to time your keys. So I personally am looking forward to try out different covenant choices for Resto Druid in Mythic Plus. I'll try out Kyrian, I'll try out Necro, just for that single target DPS that you can get with specific draft legendary and things like that. It is going to be interesting. I still feel in raids, Night Fae is going to be the king for majority of raiding content. So now we go Resto Shaman, and honestly, Kyrian Vesper Totem is just the only way to go in Mythic Plus. The fact that Vesper Totem 40-second cooldown with Mechanicos, if you use it properly, it heals and does damage at the same time. It goes into your Cloudburst. It fits the healer meta in such a way that it's going to be becoming a vital part of any Resto Shaman who's pushing Mythic Plus. In raids, honestly, I don't think this graph represents a true potential of covenants, because I feel every covenant in raid situations can actually provide you with good HPS and good utility, and a lot of people go Necrolord because it is one of the safest options. There is no rage requirement. If you can put a Riptide, that's it, and all the other covenants have range limitations with them. I personally am going to try out Night Fae because I feel Night Fae can be pretty good with more healing tides during a fight if I use it properly. This is my overview of what's happening in 9.1 in terms of popular covenant choices, and what might happen in 9.1.5 in terms of covenants and healer specs in Mythic Plus and raids. Let's go to Mythic Plus ranking. Now, this is very important to know that the ranking that you see right now, this is based on 9.1 data. It is created by Subcreation website that is going to take in keys ranging from plus 16 to 29. So there's a lot of high level keys that are going to be used here to judge the performance on healers. And the way that I'm going to rank healers is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be placing, for a lot of healers out there, or a lot of players out there, they're probably going to try and get that, 0.1% Mythic Plus achievement out there, and maybe they're going to try different healers. I honestly feel in order to get that achievement, the best healer is going to be Restoration Shaman, or specifically Kyrian Restoration Shaman, because the fact that you provide really good overall DPS with Vesper Totem, you have an interrupt, you have an AoE stun, it is a and you're ranged. Being ranged is actually an advantage in a lot of the keys these days. So Resto Shaman, if you're not looking for a very hard healer, it is not an overly difficult healer. It provides good damage, good healing. It is not reliant on cooldowns that much because Vesper Totem has a very short cooldown. I think Resto Shaman is one of the top tier healers. And then I'm going to be placing Ventier Holy Paladin. Now, Ashen Hallow is insanely strong if you can use it. It is 4-minute cooldown, and Ventier Holy Paladin can do more damage than Kyrian Resto Shaman. If you've seen MDI, you can see in the 21, 23 kind of key levels, Ventier Holy Paladin can do like 8k, 9k overall damage. But this is with an insanely coordinated group that runs or makes routes based on your Ashen Hallow. Ashen Hallow is 4-minute cooldown, and all of a sudden you want to use it with your wings, and then everything's kind of pre-planned. And you need to make sure to plan it in such a way that it's going to utilize your Ashen Hallow. 4-minute cooldown. If you don't do that, Holy Paladin can really suffer. While on the other hand, Resto Shaman doesn't require any sort of cooldown management because the cooldowns are so short. So if you're in an organized group, Ventier Holy Paladin is going to be an insanely strong pick. If you're pugging and you don't really care about optimizing your cooldowns in such a way, honestly, Resto Shaman is going to be the MVP and one of the best healers in Mythic Plus right now. Believe me, it is to some extent still undervalued by a lot of people. The way that I'm going to rank other healers is going to be a lot different. I'm still going to be putting Kyrian Discipline Priest right here. I think Kyrian is still going to be strong. PI Power Infusion still provides a lot of damage that is not shown on the damage meters. You still have Boon of the Senate on 1-minute cooldown, which really creates a big safety net to your Discipline Priest, especially when approaching things like Grievous and things like that. So I think Discipline Priest is still very much a solid healer in Mythic Plus, but it does require an organized group. Their single target healing can be somewhat iffy when you compare it to other healers, but again, still a very, very good healer. Now, the next healer I'm going to be placing is going to be Restoration Druid, and I'm going to be placing the Minate, and I'll tell you why later on, but you'll notice that Kyrian is kind of emerging, and I think it's fun to see Kyrian, which is going to be boosting your damage, it's going to be boosting damage of a DPS, also their stats if you're running the Kyrian specific legendary, which again has very much hidden potential in the DPS meters, to the very similar extent that Discipline Priest or Holy Priest have PI, which is not going to show up on their damage meters. So Resto Druid, like every other healer, has a lot of utility. It might be overshadowed if you're running with a Boomkin, which again is part of the meta in this season as well, but Resto Druid still has good utility, good healing, and their DPS is very much similar to a lot of other healers, except these overpowered ones. So the next healer I'm gonna go with Mistweaver Monk, and to the very similar extent that I talked about Discipline Priest and Resto Druid, Mistweaver Monk can provide a decent amount of damage, not a crazy amount. It is getting buffed in 9.1.5. I have tested, very limited testing of Venti Mistweaver Monk in 9.1.5 in terms of the, you know, the Tiger Adept damage and things like that. It wasn't overwhelming. It wasn't like, oh, it's going to be so crazy, I'm gonna do as much damage as Resto Shaman or Venti Holy Paladin. No way. You're still doing decent amount of damage, you're still providing a lot of HPS, you still have a decent amount of utility. The fact is that every healer provides utility. There isn't a healer in this game that has zero utility. So if every healer has utility, utility doesn't become part of the argument in order to rank a healer. And the last healer, again, it's not a bad healer, Holy Priest. Holy Priest, again, the damage is going to be buffed because Divine Star is getting buffed, and you're running Divine Star regardless of Mythic Plus environment, and that's pretty cool. To the same extent that Discipline Priest Divine Star, you might be using Divine Star and it's going to be additional AoE damage. So the reason I ranked them in S tier and A tier is that I don't think there's a lot of difference between Discipline Priest and Holy Priest. I don't think there's a lot of difference between Discipline Priest and Mistweaver Monk. Their overall damage is similar. If you take in PI, if you take in, again, Kyrian specific legendary, and the buffs that they provide, it might be a little bit different. But the overpowered, the underlying issue in healer meta right now is DPS. Every healer provides good healing, every healer provides good utility, but not every healer provides good damage. Kyrian, Resto, Shaman, Venti, Holy Paladin are really, really high up there. So maybe in the next season, in the next patches, Blizzard either has to buff the DPS of these healers, or they have to nerf the DPS of these two healers. We'll have to see what's gonna happen, but that is probably the only way to create a more balanced healer meta in the future. Whether Blizzard wants to do it or not, I don't know. Maybe they're going to double down on healer utility, but this is what's happening right now and in 9.1.5. So let's go to the healer rate performance in 9.1.5, and honestly, we're not going to talk about 9.2 because I fully expect there's going to be more healer changes. And again, you'll notice here 75 percentile, Mythic, Sanctum of Domination, Venti and Mistweaver Monk. This is Venti and Mistweaver Monk is just dominating HPS charts, especially if you can make use of Yulon, because you have to remember, if you're running Venti, you're running Fallen Order, you want to crit as much as you can in those Fallen Order windows, which means Refreshing Jadewind becomes pretty much a default pick, and you're going to have Yulon. And with Yulon 3-minute cooldown, if you can combine it with Boomkin's Innervate and your Mana Tea, you can have a really efficient, insane amount of HPS. So Venti and Mistweaver Monk, especially if you're under healing content, you're doing farm content, is the absolute king. But now let's look at the meta that emerged during Race to World First. If you're progressing Sanctum of Domination right now in 9.1.5 and you think that you need that double Discipline Priest, double Holy Paladin combo that World First skills were using, you're deeply mistaken. You really don't need that combo anymore. The reason why Holy Paladin Discipline were so strong is because damage reduction. Damage reduction was really popular when you're somewhat under geared and you don't have those domination shards maxed out, so the fights take longer. Fights like Soul Render, where a lot of people are breaking double chains and there's a lot of damage happening, you might need damage reduction to equalize or even survive that mechanic. So this is why Discipline Priest and Holy Paladins were really strong. If you're looking at the meters right now, if Diva Aura, the 15% damage reductions you get, doesn't require stacking, if that was included in this meter, Holy Paladin would be a lot higher. If Barrier for Discipline Priest, 25% damage reduction requires stacking, but good guilds will utilize that, the healing meters would be a lot bigger. So Discipline Priest and Holy Paladin are still very, very, very strong healers, and as long as they have this damage reduction, and as long as they have the passive damage they can do, and this is the passive damage meters, again, they're not exactly great way to look at it because a lot of people are cheesing it, but Holy Paladin and Discipline Priest are providing a lot of DPS, and Mistweaver Monk is going to be coming out here as well, because every monk is going to be running Rising Mist. They're going to be fist sweeping because they want to play their monk in an optimal way. So now you have a meta of Holy Paladin that was really popular, Discipline Priest that was really popular, Resto Shaman who's the absolute utility king, because you have to remember, you have Spirit Link, there's 10% damage reduction there, you have Healing Tide, you have Windrush Totem. Most people don't realize how big Windrush Totem is. If you don't have Druid's for Stampeding Roar, Windrush Totem is pretty much OP, especially on the hard fights like Phase 1 and Phase 2 of Sylvanas. Pretty much mandatory. So you are the utility king as Restoration Shaman. Still good HPS, but you can't really provide that passive DPS, but you have enough tools in your toolkit to pretty much warrant you a spot in a lot of the raids. So you have Holy Paladin, you have Discipline Priest, you have Restoration Shaman, and then now Mistweaver Monk emerging, who does not have damage reduction but has the unmatched HPS and still really good passive damage that it can do because you're fist weaving. And now this is where the rant comes in. What is the reason to have Restoration Druid or Holy Priest in the raid? I don't know if Blizzard watches any of my videos. I really doubt it. There needs to be a better niche for Resto Druid and Holy Priest, because if 9.2 comes out with without any other healer changes, Resto Druid and Holy Priest might be dead on arrival. What is the niche of Resto Druid? A healer on the move who cannot cast Tranquility on the move. Resto Druid, don't get me wrong, provides a lot of HPS and it is a very good HPS healer, but if you have a Mistweaver who provides more healing, who provides more damage, and still can't have a solid spot in this raid healing meta, what chance does a Resto Druid have? What chance does a Holy Priest have? Now, I know Blizzard really tried and made Symbol of Hope to be one of the defining abilities for Holy Priest, because they made Symbol of Hope reduce the damage reduction cooldowns from other classes, but some of those spells were really not that influential, and honestly, I don't think it's really a thing at this given point. Even some of the top end guilds didn't really see it as a real solid option. So right now, Resto Druid and Holy Priest don't really have a substantial niche. Now, if you're playing those healers, play them. They're very fun healers. You're having a really good time. You can do good HPS, and all of the time, skill is going to be greater than the class. But if you're approaching a high-end content where a lot of your guild members will have an equal skill level, you will start to notice the gaps in your class. But this is a disclaimer, guys. This is looking at high-end mythic raiding. I don't want people to be discouraged, but at the same time, I want to show the glaring problems with certain classes, because I do think they deserve their time in the sun as well. So if 9.2 raid comes out without any other healer changes, with a raid similar to Sanctum of Domination in terms of stacking, in terms of damage patterns, I still see the same healer meta emerging, with Holy Paladin solidifying its spot, Discipline Priest solidifying its spot. Again, you'll probably see Resto Shaman if the utility needs are big. Again, I forgot to mention APT Totem, really solid for progression and farm kills if your guild's still failing to that Paintsmith rekills. I think you know what I'm talking about. And then you might see a Mistweaver Monk because of the pure HPS and still good passive damage. I think there's going to be more healer changes happening in 9.2. I think Blizzard is going to try and fix this issue, but for 9.15, I think if you're looking at for a top HPS healer and looking to be top of the healing meters, Mistweaver Monk is a good option. And if you're looking to help out your raid, you can honestly play any healer right now, because progressing 9.15 Sanctum of Domination does not require a healer meta. Again, this was an insanely long video, but I wanted to showcase all of the changes in healer meta and mythic plus and raids and my opinions. And if you made it to this part, I love you because you watched the whole video, and I really appreciate it. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, especially during this kind of weird space where WoW is at this moment. Let me know how you feel about 9.15 changes. Let me know what you would like to see in the future. What healer meta would you like to emerge in raids and mythic plus? What healer deserves that time in the sun in 9.2 as well? Thank you guys, and I'll see you in my next video.